What's good, everybody? It's BBK Dragoon here with another Crucible tip video. We're talking about button layouts today. I think it's very important to talk about the reasoning behind different layouts, talk about clawing, and the advantages and the importance of keeping your right thumb on the right stick at all times. So in a second, I'm going to load into a patrol with the controller cam and talk you through that. As always, with anything setup related, this is personal preference. Everybody's going to have their own setup that they're most comfortable on. My hope is just to explain the reasoning behind the different layouts and for you to choose what works best for you. Alright, so I've come into an open patrol area to show off the differences between the default and the bumper layout, and I think by far the bumper layout is a much better way to go for performance. You're going to have people, this is personal preference, so you're going to have people who say they play just fine on default and they never need to try another button layout since, but let me explain to you why I switched to bumper jumper many years ago in Halo. Bumper jumper is a button layout that allows you to jump using the left bumper, and that came about in Halo 3. The reason was, in Halo 2, everybody who was competitive or played well clawed. Everybody clawed, because jumping was a big part of Halo, and the A button got you into the air, just like in Destiny. And so clawing is where you take your index finger and you bring that over here to the basically the face buttons. PlayStation users, this is all the same concept. It might be a little bit different on your controller. I don't have a PS4, otherwise I'd bring that controller and show that here, but they'd claw. They'd use their index finger to do everything. So if I need to reload, I'd just bring it over to X, and the middle finger is the one doing that. The reason was, a big thing in Halo was jumping and shooting. Like, if you were at the last second right before you were going to die, a lot of people would jump, they'd do a Gandhi hop in the midair, and they'd shoot players. And Halo is so important that you keep that consistent shot on target. You know, the player, against competitive people, the person who drops a shot string is usually the person who's going to die. And since jumping was important, the claw was developed. Luckily, in Halo 3, they invented bumper jumper, which migrates the jumping mechanic over to the left bumper. So I'm going to go over to my button layouts here. You'll see there's 6. Jumper is the only layout out of all 6 that moves the jump button off of A. So on bumper jumper, my left index finger is going to be doing all the jumping. And the benefit here is I have full control with my right stick in every jumping scenario, so I can do pretty complex moves. In midair, I can reshift my focus. I can aim a lot easier while in the air, instead of having to remove my right thumb from the stick, because you don't get the same level of accuracy. Every time you move it and bring it back, you don't get the same level of accuracy, and there's a period of time where you just don't aim. Like, you cannot aim when your thumb is not on the stick. So bumper jumper alleviates that issue. Super is casted with the A button, and that's actually maybe a bit of a setback, right? If you're somebody who has to be super accurate with your Nova Bomb, sometimes I'll claw for my supers. I'll bring the index finger over here onto A and do that. But, you know, you have to hit A to throw the super, right? You got to jump, pick the spot, hit A, and then bring it back to the stick. So the same disadvantage applies, but the thing is, I throw a super way less than me jumping, and I jump all the time. The ability to keep your, hands where they are stationary is a huge benefit. Now, it doesn't mean you shouldn't add claw to your arsenal. I've got really big hands, so clawing hurts my hands if I play very often, so I'll show you here with the super. If I'm going to throw it out in the water, I have to hit A and then bring it back onto the stick. So if I needed to kill somebody quick and then get the shot off, I have a bit of a disadvantage there. So sometimes I'll go for a claw super, where I'll go up super and then I keep the right thumb on the stick. It may seem a bit redundant, but it's like a really important thing in gameplay, and you'll notice it, especially if you're a hunter. So let me throw on blink. Like, blink, it doesn't matter as much because you just spam the jump button and you're done. So I'm like, nah, yeah, we're done. That doesn't matter, right? If you were going to go to A and blink, if you're, on standard layout, going da-da, it's not a big deal. But if you're somebody like a hunter who has to do a triple jump or a quad jump, every time you jump, you'd have to move, on standard, you'd have to move that thumb over to the A button over and over again. So here, my recommendation, I've explained the differences. Try out bumper. Try out the bumper layout. You will notice a difference over time. It might take a little bit to get used to it. Of course, you're probably going to throw a few supers that you didn't mean to, because the new super button's A. On default, being able to smash the shoulder buttons and throw a super, that's pretty cool, right? I'm not going to lie. That's nice. I can keep aiming my supers however I want to if it's a projectile super. But jumping's too important. Jumping is just way too important. I'd encourage you to practice clawing for trials game modes, like when you're going for revive. If I'm going to go over and revive a teammate, I'll move my hand into the claw position where the index finger is placed over the face button, so I can do all the actions that I want to do here. But I could still revive. So let's say the player's, you know, this little bush right here. Hold X to revive, and my right thumb gets to stay on the stick. And so I can still shoot people. I can still, you know, reload, swap a weapon if I need to, and take shots. It's just something to be aware of. In terms of the other button layouts, none of them hit my fancy, but you should take a look at them to see. Jumper's the only one that gives you jump away from the A button. You can swap your triggers with the bumpers, so if I do that, I can actually shoot using the right button. I hate the right buttons on the Xbox controller though, especially the Xbox One. Just feels horrible to me, so I would never do that. Give jumper a try. Maybe take a look at some of these other layouts. They're not for me. This is personal preference though. Like if I can just emphasize one really big thing here, button layouts are 100% personal preference. I've shown you my argument and a lot of pro players' arguments back in Halo why you should always keep that right thumb on the right stick, and having to move it between the A and the stick button is a disadvantage. You do lose accuracy by doing that. There's periods of time, even if it seems small, that you can't aim. But if you play better that way, you play better that way. Everybody, it's personal preference. Oh yeah, here's the last little stitch here before the clips. Come over to look controls, turn that vibration off. You can thank me later. I'm just kidding. Not everybody does that. Not everybody likes doing that. You might notice I am always playing with a wired controller, and the way you do that with the Xbox One is it's a micro USB to USB cable. You just plug the micro USB port into the front of the controller, and then you take the batteries out, and there's a few advantages here. Number one, you save money on batteries, which is pretty sweet. But number two, as batteries get lower, you get more latency with your controller, and anything that is wireless has a bit more latency than something that is wired. Now, is that something you're actually going to notice? Like, if you're using a wireless controller, are you going to notice a huge difference? No, probably not. But it's something I've gotten in the habit of doing, and I would try and reduce as much latency as possible. For PlayStation users, I'm not really sure how you go about getting a wired setup. Maybe it's a controller, maybe it's the same setup, but I do recommend that. Anyway, thank you all for watching. If you have your own comments, let me know down below, or tips that I missed out on. If you want to learn about controller sensitivity, check out my last PvP tip video, which will be linked below. If you found this helpful, please like the video, and I'll see you next time.